We could no more forget this than we can forget slavery, because it was just an atrocity to reap on any people, especially in these United States.
It was pretty rough to know that they was involved in something just among the black, you know. Anything like that around and ain't nothing anybody black, it must be something wrong.
Myself and two of my brothers had to go to the health department and get a blood test. And I had a level of syphilis in my bloodstream.
The Tuskegee Study of Untreated Syphilis in the Male Negro. What is the impact of this scientific experiment that was implemented 70 years ago? For the survivors and family members, coming to grips with what happened continues to be a painful and challenging journey.
Well, I was born in Macon County, Alabama, which is Tuskegee, just about maybe a mile, maybe out of town, you know, kind of south of the town.
George Key, born in 1907, was in the prime of his youth when he became a participant in what is now known as the Tuskegee Study. The program began in the 1920s to document the devastating impact of syphilis. Syphilis was a dreaded disease. Symptoms included severe skin rashes, fever, and pain. To find out more about how the disease affects the body, the Public Health Service initiated a program in Macon County, Alabama, a rural farming community with a high incidence of syphilis. 600 men were recruited for the study. 400 had syphilis. 200 used as a control did not. Nearly all were poor farmers or sharecroppers.
The first time we went, there was 3 or 4 of us went together, and they get some kind of milk, something like milk to swallow, and I don't know what that been so long, I don't even know what that was for.
When the study began, there was no cure for syphilis. Standard treatment consisted of mercury rubs and arsenic injections. Initially, the men in the study received treatments, but with the stock market crash, funds were no longer available and treatments were terminated. However, researchers continued to collect data on the men in the expectation that funding for treatment would become available within 6 months. Ultimately, the 6 months of non-treatment would continue for 40 years, and throughout that period, the men were never told the whole truth.
It was a program they said was helping the people, you know, on it, you know. If they joined that, they could, you know, get some results out of it, some medical care, something like that. And then I was real young then. I don't guess I might have been 20 years old then. I never could understand what it was all about. No more. She said it was a nice program, you know, like colored people, when something come around and think you gonna help them, a lot of them would jump into it. But we were young, I didn't know what it was all about. So me and my brother both joined in.
After we started going to the hospital, that's where we got involved with the white doctor. Well, they'd check us. He would check me. He checked me and told me what was wrong, but he didn't do nothing for me. He said, he told me I had high blood.
The men in the study received baseline blood workups, physical exams, and at one point, a spinal tap to determine neurological damage. They were told that the spinal tap was a necessary treatment. In truth, it was not only unnecessary, but also painful and dangerous.
Well, it was pretty bad, that spinal tap. Of course, I did along pretty good with it, but, and I I stayed in the bed a week or two.
By the 1950s, penicillin had become widely accepted as an effective remedy for syphilis. Alabama law mandated penicillin treatment for those infected. However, doctors did not permit the Tuskegee participants to have the new medicine. In their zeal to continue to collect scientific data about the disease, public health physicians withheld treatment from the men. Aggressive efforts were made to discourage the men from joining the military, where inductees were routinely screened and treated for syphilis. Additionally, when some of the men moved away from Tuskegee, the Public Health Service made sure they would not receive treatment. The names of the men were circulated to clinics and health facilities in the cities where they moved, and doctors there were instructed to not administer penicillin. When George Key moved to California and later to Massachusetts, he found that doctors in both places kept track of him. And soon after relocating to Ohio, Ernest Hendon was contacted by a government doctor.
After I went to Cleveland, they still kept in contact with me. Sometime one white man used to come up there and see me about once a year.
There seems to be some confusion. Let me explain what we're checking for. There is a germ that infects the genital area, resulting in a temporary and painless, but highly contagious penile ulceration. Now, this ulceration will disappear as the disease becomes non-contagious or latent. And this latency can last for up to 30 years until finally the cardiovascular and nervous systems will disintegrate and collapse.
The HBO movie Miss Evers' Boys presented a fictitious version of the Tuskegee Study. The nurse in the movie, Miss Evers, was patterned after the real Tuskegee nurse, Eunice Rivers.
By frolicking too much, or maybe passed on from your mom and your daddy, you might get a really bad sew down below in your private parts. Then through that so a bug can crawl up inside here and go to sleep for 20, 30 years or more, so as not to hurt nobody but you. But when it wake up, you can't walk, you can't breathe, you can't think. That is bad blood. That's what we're checking to see if y'all got, so we can get rid of it.
One reason so many men agreed to participate in the study is because of Nurse Rivers. She lived in Macon County and was a trusted member of the community. The government enlisted her aid in recruiting participants for the study and encouraging them to stay involved. The Public Health Service also asked Tuskegee Institute to help coordinate the study. By using trusted individuals and institutions and by offering incentives such as free life insurance, the government was able to keep participants in the study year after year. In 1972, the secret of the Tuskegee experiment was uncovered. National news articles carried the story of the 40-year medical study that had so wrongly impacted hundreds of men and their families. Congressional hearings were held. There was a major public outcry, and a lawsuit was filed on behalf of the men. In an out-of-court settlement, the government agreed to pay $10 million and provide medical benefits to the survivors of the Tuskegee study and their descendants. One of those descendants recalls how he reacted when he first learned of the study that impacted him so personally. Not only was his father a participant, but also 2 uncles and several cousins.
Oh, I was successfully employed and more or less moving up the ladder at work and everything, and it was like a bombshell, you know, to have this blow at that time, and then know that my father as well as my uncles were, you know, associated with it. And of course I wondered how long that would be privy information, you know.
Herman Shaw, a longtime spokesperson for the survivors and a participant in the study, led a movement to gain compensation beyond money. Many survivors and family members felt strongly that what was needed was an official governmental apology, an acknowledgement of the devastation and deceit that defined the Tuskegee study.
The president came in, and the participants, the survivors, came in. Touching for them to be honored that day. I'll never forget it, never.
In order for America to reach its full potential. We must truly be one America. Black, red, white together, trusting each other, caring for each other, and never allowing the kind of tragedy which has happened to us in Tuskegee Study to ever happen again.
So today, America does remember the hundreds of men used in research without their knowledge and consent. We remember them and their family members. Men who were poor and African American. Without resources and with few alternatives, they believed they had found hope when they were offered free medical care by the United States Public Health Service. They were betrayed. What was done cannot be undone, but we can end the silence. We can stop turning our heads away. We can look at you in the eye and finally say, on behalf of the American people, what the United States government did was shameful, and I am sorry.
So you were there and the president apologized.
Yes, that's the best thing. Because I was shaking his hand when I went to shake his hand. I told him, I said, thank you for apologizing, for talking like you did. And I said, now we won't forget it. Yes, sir, so did.
To Fannie Mitchell, her husband Gary was much more than one of the 600 men in a medical study. When he died in 1966, she lost a man who was a loving husband to her and a generous father to her children. She remembers him fondly.
He's tall and slim, and he just was all right man, as far as I know, as far as I'm concerned, and hard-working. But he couldn't get one job, he'd get another, and he was a good provider for me to trade around to take care of his family best he could. Drive trucks, tractors, anything he could get to make some money, he would do it. He was just a man that stood on his own 2 feet, I know that, and he wasn't scared. And what he would have set his head to do, he would go and try to do that. And nobody couldn't stop him.
My father, named Reverend Stephen Charles Chappelle, he was a nice, pleasant person. He would talk to anybody. He was a Baptist preacher, because we went to all churches, not only the Baptist churches. He loved people, and he and my mother stayed married until he passed in '57, May of '57.
For Rosetta Wilson, the Tuskegee Study represents how something good can come out of bad. She suffers from a rare blood disorder that requires costly hospital stays and medications. She says without her health care benefits, she would be at a loss.
I got a card that stated that it would be my benefit to take me, go back and forth to the hospital. It would pay for my transportation back and forth to the hospital, pay the hospital bill, doctor bill. I go to the dentist, my eyeglasses. When I get in need of health, it will pay for the health, all of my health benefits. Even someone taking care of me at home when I'm sick, night or day. I'm sorry that it happened, to everybody, including my father. But it's something good has come out of it. A lot good has come out of it. Because if I didn't have the benefit that I have now, I don't know what would happen to me by going back and forth to the doctor and the hospital. I don't know what would happen. I really don't know.
Many family members continue to cope with the knowledge that their loved ones suffered unnecessarily and died prematurely. For them, any compensation from the government could not make up for the loss of their loved ones.
It caused a lot of anger, the study did, and the participation that I did with the apology, because it drew attention to other family members that they did not desire. And even today, there are divisions within the family because of my ongoing participation, and I can't lay it aside. I remember my father saying, you know, that we all have things that we're going to go through in life, much worse maybe than the experiment itself, and that we're going to have to learn how to face them, and then if there was something that was done against us, then we're going to have to be forgiving. Uncle Warren spoke very little, you know, about the study itself, and he did not feel that he was dealt with justly, because he felt it's like he was cheated through trickery. Then he felt bad because for others to know that he was that ignorant to be a participant hurt him. Now, my Uncle Ephraim was not an educated person. He was surrounded by so many people that were a part of the study itself to where he did not feel as tainted.
What are the lessons of the Tuskegee Study? What is the legacy? For one, it has changed the way in which research is conducted. The National Research Act of 1974 mandates that individuals participating in research must give their informed consent, and there are now institutional review committees and bioethics centers to strengthen standards for research programs. The Tuskegee Human and Civil Rights Multicultural Center is developing a permanent memorial to participants of the study so that people will remember, so they will not forget. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has replaced the former Public Health Service with a new direction and understanding about the ethics of human experimentation. And yet, though many years have passed, there is much to do to restore confidence in the public health system. The ghost of the Tuskegee Study continue to hover. Mistrust and suspicion are difficult to discard.
The only thing I told my children when I found out what was happening about those getting the blood tests and all that, don't get a blood test unless you just got to get one from the doctor. And don't let just anyone tell you to come and get tests and you get paid for your blood, which someone told my twins that once at high school. And I told them not to participate in it. So I don't know what was going to happen, but I was afraid that the same thing was going to happen to my daughters that happened to my father.
When somebody comes around, we should try to know what's it all about. A lot of times they come and tell you this is a good thing, you know, and you just fall for it. And then it's bad, but you don't know it till it's all in, you know. So we didn't know. We were thinking it was a good thing going on.
What I wished that we would learn from this study as a people, as a child of one of the participants in this study, personally, is that education was never more important today as a result of this study than it will ever be. You know, today is today. Get education of some form so that you will not fall prey to something like this ever happening to you or yours.